I'm a linguist and a researcher by trade. That's what I got my PhD in. And I got to tell you, back in the day, being a linguist was not sexy. It was like linguistics. Like, are you going to get a job after that? Like, is there a field? And now today, people are like large language models. You're so brilliant. Like, whatever, these hype cycles. But yeah, back in the day, so I'm working on natural language processing, speech recognition systems. Yeah, my team found like voice AI influencer. I was tagged with this title back in 2018. So while the jargon is different and like how people see my work has shifted, the like data and AI infrastructure builds that I've been doing have been pretty consistent across the last 8 to 10 years on my side. That's kind of like I love what I do. I like get to build really cool things. And I just, the field is evolving in front of us and kind of how the public thinks about our work and is exposed to like, oh, wait a minute, I can use that product myself.
Welcome to the Confident Mompreneur podcast, where you can find solid advice along with warm guidance on motherhood, business, relationships, health, wellness, and everything you need to help add to your confidence and zest for life. And with interesting guests from all around the world, you'll hear real and relatable stories with impact and nuggets of wisdom to help you or the mompreneur meet the challenges of life with clarity and success. Now let's welcome your mompreneur host, Carrie Blaney.
Well, welcome on today, Dr. Joan. I'm so excited to have you here.
Delighted to be here.
Thanks so much for coming on. We were just talking a little bit beforehand about all of the things that she's got going on. She's on a book tour right now. So I'm so excited to get to hear from you and get to know a little bit more about you and what you're doing. I'm super interested in it. So do you want to just start us out by introducing yourself and a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Well, hello, folks. Greetings from Seattle. If you're not in Seattle right now, my name's Joan. I am an entrepreneur. I'm a best-selling book author very recently. I'm an investor. I work in AI, so I build custom data and AI solutions. But like a lot of people these days, I have been in 2 AI layoffs. And so building both my technical career, but also resilience. I'm talking more openly about I have 22 income streams and kind of a lot of people ask me like, how did I do it? Or like, I'm scared of losing my job, Joan. Like, what's your advice? And so more and more, despite being a technical builder, I want to give back and help people who are in that anxiety place right now about how we future-proof our careers, how we think about income in stable ways, especially during this time of AI that so many cool opportunities and also really high volatility. So I think there's kind of the business side of AI and there's the like, how does it affect me as a human?
Yeah.
And I really like to speak to both in my work.
No, I love that so much. And I think it's a really great topic to talk about, especially right now, because it is becoming more prevalent. We just saw some new AI technology come out that kind of shook the market. And so it's really interesting to see kind of how it's evolving and how people are now starting to integrate it into their lives, but also what that integration means for personally our lives as well, too.
Absolutely. Because ChatGPT came out and people are like, oh, wow, this AI thing. Like, whoa, it's more advanced than I might expect. Then people try it and they're like, actually, how good is it or not is it? But how it can help people. I mean, I know I use it in my daily business, ChatGPT and Perplexity, these AI tools, like the efficiencies, how much faster we can spit out copy or fix things or summarize things. I mean, no joke, it can be super, super helpful as kind of an assistive tool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think that's really important distinction to make is that it's an assistive tool. It's not a like, just solve everything type of tool, which I
Yeah.
think is a big misconception that a lot of people have around kind of the AI programs that we have available.
It's true. I think there's this fear mongering of like, oh, is AI going to take my job? Or like, what? But I think it's really important of like, for me at least, all these clerical things, I'm like, I would rather not do them. Can I get this, AI assistant to help me so I can maximize the time I have with my customers, with humans, get done, get off screens, spend time with my dog outside, like how we shape our lives, I think for me at least, is shifting. And so how I think what does productivity mean? But I truly, AI can be so helpful as an assistant and also have someone to check it before we send it out into the world.
Right.
So these are all pieces that I'm navigating on the daily.
Yeah. So, how did you get into this kind of world and what really threw you into it? Because I feel like when I was reading your bio, it seems like you kind of got into this world very early, considering most of us have just kind of dove into it in the last year or so. So, what led you up to this moment?
Yeah, it's so funny how the world shifts. I'm a linguist and a researcher by trade. That's what I got my PhD in. And I got to tell you, back in the day, being a linguist was not sexy. It was like, linguistics, like, are you going to get a job after that? Like, is there a field? And now today, people are like large language models. You're so brilliant. Like, whatever, these hype cycles.
Yeah.
But yeah, back in the day, so I'm working on natural language processing, speech recognition systems. Um, yeah, my team found like voice AI influencer. I was tagged with this title back in 2018. So while the jargon is different and like how people see my work has shifted, the like data and AI infrastructure builds that I've been doing have been pretty consistent across the last 8 to 10 years on my side. So that's kind of like I love what I do. I like get to build really cool things. And I just the field is evolving in front of us and kind of how the public thinks about our work and is exposed to like, oh, wait a minute, I can use that product myself. Like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
Joan, like like you work like my family understands more of what I do, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
which is really, really fun. And yeah, now being a linguist at a happy hour is like actually fun. So
No, that's funny. And, and how did you decide to go into linguistics? Because like you said, it's not a super like sexy kind of
yes.
area to go into. Like, what was your motivation to go into that area?
I like it. Hedonism. I'm one of those kids that always loved languages. If you ever knew people like me, were like, I want to learn French, I want to learn Spanish, like I want to, travel the world. And kind of as I dug more deeply into it and was teaching languages back in the day, I realized like the huge opportunities. Do you use Duolingo by chance, for
Yeah,
example?
yeah.
Yeah, early Duolingo, I was like, what's the data set? And you like speak into it and it like switches languages. And I was like, my creativity was just like, this is so cool. Like, this is the future when anything can be voice enabled, when we work with multilingual data sets. Anyway, go off of my nerdy data stuff. But that like, I'm passionate about this. How do I like dive deep? What could be built? Kind of that opportunity minded curiosity to watch that happen and to be able to play with these data sets myself and be like, it's a lot harder than you think. And I just, from there, the joke linguists make, if there's any other linguists here, linguistics is a gateway drug into computer science. With just a little more code, things can be a whole lot easier.
Mhm.
And so that kind of was my journey into what I do today.
Nice. That is so cool. Well, and I love that because I think, especially in recent years, the world has opened up so much with things like social media and other things. And now travel is way more predominant, I think, than ever. And so the ability to like be a linguist and understand multiple languages and things is like a tool that people really love to have now. And so being able to use that and then also going into the tech sector, which is booming right now, you just like hit all the like big and upcoming things before they were really up and coming.
Well, thank you. I think following your passions and then figuring out how to monetize it is advice I could give almost anybody. But
Yeah.
because it's fun, like I'm doing projects right now that I'm like, I can't wait to finish that up, but like, and I get paid for it. Like, what?
Right.
So yeah, it's a fun space.
Well, and that's the best feeling. And that's why, one of the main things that we talk about on this podcast is how we can take those passions and the stories that are in our lives, whether they're good or bad, and turn it into successful and profitable businesses. And you've done just that. So tell us a little bit now about what you're doing with AI and then your book that just came out and kind of what it speaks to.
Absolutely. Whew, okay, business. My big business is building custom data and AI infrastructure for companies, which is, how do we clean up their data? How do we make models for them? Kind of that's my business. I'm just about to close my first 8-figure contract. So
Wow,
let's see, thank
congrats.
you. Thank you. But I also have many income streams that help balance out I talk in my book actually that I have 22 income streams so that while I'm waiting in a pre-sale cycle for something huge to close, I have other things coming along the way so I can still pay my mortgage. My book is a companion to my podcast. Joan's got so many things. What are all the things? Um, my book is really a love letter giving back to people. So along my career, people in my DMs are like, Joan, how did you do it? Or I'm scared of about losing my job, or all these questions keep burgeoning up. And so I've made a podcast to answer a lot of those questions and then got this companion book deal from Wiley. Um, but it is the first Your AI Roadmap is what it's called. And it's about how the individual, like how we figure out and navigate our path during this time of AI. The first whole section of the book is modern careers. So a lot of people are like, I might lose my job, or my spouse just lost their job. Like, yikes, how do I stay relevant? How do I future-proof my career? And so I dive into the research about like, even though I work in AI, it's somewhat ironic, I tripling down on that human part,
Yeah.
like leveraging your network, building your personal brand. Who are you? How do you connect with the right opportunities? I have got like step by step how to do it in my book. But it's not rocket science. Like it blows my mind that like after COVID layoffs, people landed their next job. 70% of people landed their next job based on an introduction.
Hmm.
So it's not spamming your CV to 400 boxes. It's talking to your friend Lisa. It's connecting with Taylor. And Taylor's like, oh, I know of an opportunity that you'd be perfect for. You got to talk to this person. Like 70% of people, that's how they landed the next gig, right?
I think that's so important to say and to talk about because I actually was having this conversation with my dad the other day. He decided that he was going to go to a new job. And I would say 95% of jobs anymore have you apply through some sort of online platform, right? And then what they don't tell you is that they have some sort of underlying AI system in there to filter through the resumes as they come through. And they really are just like searching for like keywords and if you match up on certain criteria or whatever like that. And so my dad was talking that his resume that he put in on one of those online forums was automatically skipped over because he didn't have the right credentials. But he knew some of the individual people that worked at the place that he was looking at. And he went and talked to them. And even though he didn't have the credentialing, he had enough of the skills and just like, in person know how to
Mhm.
do those things that they like physically put his resume on the desk and he was able to get the job. But because of these AI systems, you can get skipped over so easily if you don't know how to do those systems. And so those like in-person, real human connections are so, so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And looking at the research, I just like triple down on the human part. Like
Mhm.
it's wild to see this data bear out. And so I like really recommend people, if you are like your dad looking for that next job or whatever, make a spreadsheet, put the humans in it, go on those coffee chats, be visible, post online. Like if you're already at the point of looking for another job, you probably have the skill sets. Like stop focusing on fastidiously doing that. 80% of your time, I recommend going into the human bucket, coffee chats, following up, like
Mhm.
that whole sprint is something that I people like your dad making the connections so that someone can advocate, being like, hey, he's got exactly what we need.
Mhm.
Get him to the top of the heap. So it might sound kind of old fashioned, but it's actually very much a data driven approach about how to future proof your career.
No, so good. And I love that so much. I think it can be really hard in today's times where we're so tech focused to remember that human connection, and that makes it even more important than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Well, and you talked that a part of the reason that you really teach this and believe in this is because you went through two AI driven uh job losses. What happened and what was that like for you? And then how did you come back from it yourself?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's hard to, or it's getting easier to talk about, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, people keep getting laid off here, especially in Seattle. These tech layoffs
Yeah.
are wild. I've lost my job twice. I'm in major, large scale layoffs. Super fun. I mean, the first time was, I mean, that was my biggest, I mean, my only income stream, truly. They just fall out of the sky. Like the company wasn't doing well. Like I could see the trajectory, but I'd never been laid off before. Like I wasn't ready. I don't know where you get the skill set to prepare you for that kind of thing, but I certainly wasn't there. And actually, like NPR put me in the news of like someone living the news who like lost their job and like had big aspirations, but like now worried about rent because that's what happens, right? You lose your job and suddenly food, rent, all that jazz. So that was really painful. But along the way, well, I guess what would happen for me, my like entrepreneurial skills really kicked in and I started scaling my side hustle. So I'm lucky to say for me, a few months after that layoff, I closed my first $100,000 contract with Google for different things. So the ability to bring in my own income and close my own contracts really changed the game for me of being like, okay, at that point in my life, I wanted another job. Like it was of interest to me to land the next job, but along the way, I can make my own money in different respects outside of a W-2 full-time job. So that's something I really recommend to people more and more is I share my many income streams in a volatile marketplace. Having 2 to 6 income streams to help balance you can help you sleep better at night. Basic things I didn't know to think about, like an emergency fund, having a buffer of money set aside just in case. Like these are things that I feel like are adulting. I don't know where one learns them, but I didn't learn them as soon as I could have. Like basic things like that have really helped me along the way that I'd recommend to any listener today thinking about these things of like nuts and bolts of taking care of yourself.
My question for you, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are thinking this though, is like if you already have a pretty like hefty full-time job, how do you find the time and energy to have all of these other income streams? And what are some ways that we can make them easier? Maybe using AI as part of that. Like,
Definitely. Well, some of them are kind of a set it and forget it, relatively passive things. So I agree with you. A lot of us are already overworked and we're like, excuse me, when do I have time for all this stuff? Something I strongly recommend to anybody, I'm not a financial wealth planner. My lawyer would say, like, disclaimer, disclaimer, ideas, is to set up a high yield savings account. So, for example, it sounds ridiculous, but it's real. I put my emergency fund with a high yield savings account. They pay me hundreds of dollars per month to leave my money with them so that I know I can get it if I need it, like immediately. I can liquidate it, boom, pay whatever needs to be paid. But like hundreds of dollars a month and I just set up the account and let it sit there. I could buy sushi with that money. I could let that money continue compounding, but like that is a very passive way to bring in extra revenue because I have capital to set aside in that account. So I'm not saying everyone needs to start like hustling and selling things on the side, but I do think that your ability to know that you can helps you not worry so much if there are big changes in your life. Does that make sense?
yeah. Well, and I do work in the finance industry, and compound interest is one of your best friends that you can have. And also just like as women getting more into investments and things like that, which right now we're doing this on March 13th in case this comes out too much later. But right now there's a whole lot going on in our stocks and investments right now. And it's a good time to get in. But also, I think people that have been in it for a long time get really scared when there's the ups and downs in the markets. And honestly, you just have to write it out because over the long term, it always goes up. If you hold it in something for a long term, it'll always go up.
Yeah, well, and I love that. And I think there's high volatility, high opportunity. I
Yeah.
agree with you completely. And I think it's also knowing your goals.
Yeah.
So if someone is in a younger age bracket and they're like, I have a desire to build a huge amount of wealth, time in the market is what the data says. You look at, I cite several studies in my book. Sounds like we agree on that. There are some people I know who are on the cusp of retirement and a huge drop in their portfolio could be very painful to them. So knowing your portfolio, knowing but that has to align with your goals.
Yep.
If you truly want to be thinking about retirement dollar signs over several decades, time in the market, keeping it in the market, that compounding interest is your friend. So I think try not to have your emotions in the front seat, but actually your goals and dreams in the long run
Yeah.
forefront is really crucial. And talking to people about it. I think the worst thing for me is like shame and like, doing things by my fears instead of like checking in, being like, here's the goal, here's the spreadsheet, here's how we're tracking. Oh, it's only 2% deviation, whatever, move on, keep doing
Right.
my stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, the market is volatile and let's see what happens. But even across the biggest depressions of this nation, we've still got like what, 8% or ridiculously positive returns in the long run.
Yeah.
So try to stay in the market.
Right. Well, and some of the other things that you mentioned that you did is like you had kind of already started your own thing on the side
Yeah.
and you grew that over time. How have you grown that? And what are some of the biggest things that you think you've done in order to make that a sustainable option for you?
Yeah. So at the time, I was building a community called Women in Voice. It's about women in conversational AI and voice tech. And I hadn't really planned to monetize it. It was just something I did that I was a passion project on the side. And then, lucky me,
As
but
most of us start.
possible. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The passion and then the monetization. If you see, yes, blueprint here. Um, but yeah, a sponsor came to me and said, you tick all our boxes. We want this. Let's talk about co-constructing something. And I was like, okay, well, and putting together contract terms and blah, 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 I could speak to. But like I'd already built something of value that they saw and they wanted to co-construct contracts. Then I matched those contracts, etc. But anyone listening could do something similar. There's a gourmet donut shop around the shop, like around the street from me. They have a line around the block. This woman is an extremely talented baker, pastry chef, whatever. She sells gourmet donuts, very, very expensive gourmet donuts. Tons of people want to buy them. Like that's an expertise. She packaged it up. She scaled that.
Mhm.
And hopefully she's savvy enough to use some of that capital to, be disputing and reinvesting and stuff. But for me, right, having that side hustle, something I was passionate about, monetizing it, scaling it. We have over 20 chapters around the world. I'm no longer in day-to-day operations. We have a whole team. How many different things one can do well. But that ability to learn how to grow something, how to build a brand, how to monetize it, how to hire a team around it, and let your baby go when it's not the right fit no more. So that type of sprint is something I think anybody could learn, but also like the basics of like building an offer of like, I have a skill set. Here's a dollar sign. Here's what it could do for you. Like sell it.
Mhm.
I I find it like I tutored a bunch in grad school to help pay my bills. It was so empowering. Oh my gosh, I was like scraping by to pay for my groceries. I don't know if you know how much grad students get paid, but it's hard days. And I struggled with paying my groceries and rent, the basics. It was horrible. I felt such shame about it. I started tutoring on the side, $40 an hour. I was a graduate student. I had amazing customers every week paying me in cash and checks. And suddenly it was easier to pay for groceries and just like how much better I slept at night, how good I felt my body. Like I was still pursuing my goal of getting my, degrees, my master's and PhD, but like having the ability to make that side income. And as you mentioned, it's time, it's more labor, but I actually really loved my students. I got a lot out of it. So the ability to have that in that time, just one more income stream was transformative for how I experienced that back in the day.
Well, and I love that you talk about like recognizing the value that you have that you can add to somebody too, because the value goes both ways in those situations. I do think women typically have a harder time like seeing their own value or seeing the things that they're really great at because it becomes so normal to us that we just assume it's like the level for everybody else and don't see the power that we have in that. Do you have any tips for kind of finding those like niches or those things that we're really good at and then finding a way to make it a scalable and growable like business of some kind?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's a very personal question, that person's own experience and things, but most people have a few like passions they love to do. There's this cool knitting thing. They love, their running group, whatever it is for them. There are always ways to make offers around that. And I actually go through that in my book of like, it's not rocket science over here. Like, what is the thing? Step by step, like how to do it, put a dollar sign on it. And then how can you scale that? I know some people have offers of like $20, but if you sell it to enough people, suddenly that becomes a revenue stream that's very exciting. Um, I think I agree with you. I think women sometimes struggle with like, oh, what is it? What am I even good at? Even if maybe just ask your three friends, hey,
Yeah.
Sharice, what am I good at? Can you mirror back to me, things that might be a good thing? I think some people feel anxiety monetizing it. How could I ask someone to do blah blah blah? But the thing is, it may not be sustainable unless you get paid
Yeah.
and you can start small. So yeah, I have a friend. I'm like, why aren't like more people could access this if you made a paid program? But because she only does it for a few people for quote unquote free, like it actually doesn't reach as many people. Anyway, I've talked to her about this. She
And
knows
it
very
doesn't help
keenly.
as many people that need the
Literally,
help.
and people, I mean, anyway, she's fantastic. And I'm just like, I want more of her stuff. I can't wait to buy more of her programs and services.
Right.
But because, anyway, she's figuring that out. But I'm just saying, someone's so talented at what she does. I hope she knows. Kat, you're amazing. But to make it sustainable, there has to be dollar signs on it for
Yeah.
her, for
Yeah.
time, for life.
Well, and like we were saying, those are the human elements that AI can't take away from us, right? The real human experiences and things that we have learned over time that we can then share with other people, in our own personal way, which I think is great. And again, that creates this sustainability in this tech saturated market.
Absolutely, because you want to. I was just listening to this influencer the other day being like, how do people decide, which thing to purchase? You want someone who you feel like is like you, right? You want to understand their story, how they got there. You're like, I want to be like her, but nuts and bolts, how did she get there? Like step by step, like bring me along the way. Like, I think this identity aspect, not oversharing, please keep some of the things to yourself, but like when we are our most authentic selves to others. I think that's the most attractive and easiest thing for me to buy. I'm like, oh, yes, I need to understand that better. Really, respect this piece of it. So I think that humanness, you're hearing this from an AI influencer, literally. The AI influencer is recommending you triple down on that human aspect. So that's really important and something anyone could do today.
Yeah. Well, and that's the biggest thing that always draws me into people is like the authentic people that are like telling me like the actual crap that they're going through. Cause I'm like, hey, me too. I see myself in that experience and I see that you've made it through. So maybe that gives me a little hope that I can too.
Absolutely. And honestly, talking about being laid off publicly has not been fun. But the more people I tell them, they're like, oh, me too. I've also been made redundant, or I lost my job and my whole family was embarrassed. Or you're like, suddenly it dispels the like, this is more common than you think. But instead of staying in that sad place, how can we learn from each other, take action, make moves so that unfortunately, if it happens again, you're in a totally different place to be able to ride out these waves.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, I mean, obviously speaking about something like that is hard, but look at what it's brought you in the long term, right? And that's always what I try and tell people is like, yeah, it sucks and it's really hard to talk about, especially when it's fresh and new. And sometimes that's one of those things where you hold on to it until you're ready to like
Mm.
actually give a voice to it. But by voicing it, we're able to take some of that taboo away from really difficult topics.
Totally. Well, and it's still extremely taboo in my family of origin. Like my parents are like not cool with me talking about it. But I gotta tell you, the beautiful DMs I get from people around the world being like, Joan, you get it. Like, oh my gosh, you're speaking directly to my feelings. People from South Korea, from Dubai, from Alabama. Like I'm getting all these people who are like, hey, Joan, I get it. Like, oh, like even though we're far, they understand where my heart is in giving back and sharing my best advice. So I think like I try to say like my ambition is more than just some people's fears. I really, really want to help and give back. So I go to therapy and I work out. How about that?
Same. Agreed. So I love that we're talking about like bringing in the human element to our businesses, but how can we also integrate that with the AI parts of things and like allowing the AI to help us scale but not taking away from that humanness aspect of things.
Absolutely. Well, AI is really good at certain things that are less fun or not productive. So let's give some examples. I mean, basic things of ChatGPT. I use it all the time for summarizing things, like the ability to ask creative things, to put emojis on. I mean, just let's like making some creative assets. Any business owner probably has to make some beautiful things on socials or whatever. If you have used Canva's generative AI components, I
A
mean,
little bit,
a
not
little
too
bit.
much. If
Okay, happy to. Or it's just so powerful. Like for example, there's super basic. My team has to make some assets that are 1 by 1 size and some assets that are larger. I don't know if people can see. Anyway, my hands trying to make these shapes. You can click a button and it'll resize it for you.
oh yeah.
That can save my team per asset several minutes, which translates into hours and high quality assets. Canva is very powerful and its generative AI tools. I mean, you can take backgrounds off of things or just this idea that one can click a button and poof, it does what I need it to, saving me and my team time.
Mhm.
Like, and it doesn't cost very much, like dollar sign wise. Like it's just, it's more efficient and it's not my goal. My team really works on like deliverable based outcomes instead of hourly based stuff because if they can do it in 4 minutes versus 4 hours, I don't really care as long as the quality of the work is there.
And you're
So
gonna get paid the same.
literally,
Yeah.
and it incentivizes as long as we agree that it's X quality, okay?
Yeah.
Don't just turn in slop. But like, why do we need to be changed to computers? I don't think this makes a lot of sense. Like, what does productive mean in these contexts? So, Canva is just one example of an AI tool. It just anyway, there are many cool AI tools for design stuff, but it feels like a no-brainer for me and my business.
Well, and I love that you brought up like some of the AI tools on Canva because I don't think people realize just how like AI is really in everything tech-wise that we do
Mhm.
anymore. I mean, even right now, we're doing this interview through Zoom, and I have an AI companion running on Zoom that will then email me a summary of our conversation, right? And then I'll take that summary that it emails me and I'll plug that into my chat GPT where I already have my systems built to then pop out with a title and a full summary to go on my podcast. And the fact that it can now do that saves me probably at least an hour every week when I would have spent doing that before.
Totally. And if that's 4 weeks, 4 hours in a month, what could you be doing instead of transcribing everything or moving notes around? Like, I do worry that we can just hustle culture it out and just add more things to our schedules. But I think if we do potentially create boundaries, or I'm really trying to get better at like, Joan, you hit, you're done for the day. Like, let's go outside with the dog if it's not pouring down raining here in Seattle. But you know what I mean? Like, how do we, because we can't just, the productivity opportunities are so vast. So I love your example with, show notes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes it so, so nice. And I will say with AI systems, I've learned that you really have to train them a
Mhm.
lot more than people kind of realize. Can you talk about how to effectively use AI systems for the things that you want?
Absolutely. Ooh, that's such a great question because I have definitely taught some tutorials on like how to get better at prompt engineering and like using
Mhm.
ChatGPT, which some people are like that's so passe. And someone just the other day asked me about teaching that course again because he really is excited. So if you go into ChatGPT, which some people I'm sure listening are power users, but if you say just like write an email, you will get out probably something very bland, an email, right? And so I think it's connecting the input, what we ask of it, what the tool is or can do, and then the output, how good is it? So write an email. You might get out just a basic template of an email. But what if you need to write, and I hope you haven't had to do one of these recently, a performance review email. Hey, blah, blah, blah person, sensitive topic. I need to let you know this was wildly inappropriate. Like we need to document this for blah, blah, blah. Having a good draft of that, being really specific about your positionality. I like saying, like, imagine you're, an executive and there's a sensitive topic and you need to document and you need to use this specific word that it doesn't match the code of conduct. You know what I mean? Like giving it data to shape around and say, can you write me a thoughtful email based on this prompt. And it
Mm-hmm.
pops out an example. I'm like, ooh, I like that phrasing, or that doesn't sound like me. I want to, change it up. But like all of those inputs, what we're putting into the system, really help shape a quality output. And then, of course, depending on what you're using, if you're using ChatGPT, changing a model. I love like partway through, like, let's, try 013 instead of 01 or whatever version we're looking at, because they
Mm-hmm.
do have different flavors of outputs.
Interesting.
So I think everyone writes emails, right? So just different ways of quality things in, quality things out is often the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love that you mentioned it doesn't sound like me because
Mm.
that was my like biggest like thing with the AI when I first started using it is like this just sounds so robotic and very AI. You know what I mean? And I don't want it to sound that way, especially if you're doing something like writing a very, specific email that could be very hard for somebody to hear. You don't want a robotic tone in that. You want it to be more personable and more understanding maybe of the situation or something like that. Um and so like you said, putting in lots more data where it can actually like hear the way that you talk, the way that you write out sentences, the way that you do things. I can sometimes like it'll pop out uh a task that I gave it and I'll be like, that doesn't really sound like me. Can you use this writing that I did and make it sound a little bit more like me and just pop something in there that I've wrote recently and it'll pop out with a new generative like thing that sounds much more like something I would actually say in person.
Absolutely. And it loves to mimic and copy. And like the more fuel you give it, often the better it can do. And frequently, I agree with you. I have to be like, sound more playful or like add a few emojis because I would never send such a bland email. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so, and there are more and more tools like Writer. I don't know if you've seen that one where you can put in tons of emails, for example, you've written, and it'll like define your tone for you and keep using it. So there are more customized, personalized tools coming out there. But I agree with you. Making sure it still sounds like you before you send it is
Mhm.
a really, really good idea to maximize that humanness and how you want to be in the world.
Yeah. Well, and it works really great for me. I found if I do like separate tasks for different tasks that I have. So like instead of all doing it all in the same like run, separating it out into different ones. So I have specific ones for like my podcast, or I have a specific one for an event that I was hosting that I needed certain things done for or whatever. And that really helps it kind of define for that, I don't know what you would call it, that group of tasks or whatever, what the tone, what the
Mhm.
imagery should kind of be for that, which is
Yeah,
super interesting.
it's super helpful. It's like running a memory refresh. It's like, whoop, okay, switching gears, new task,
Hmm.
new concept. I definitely find that to be helpful.
Yeah, super cool. Well, and I'm sure the linguist in you loves when you like see those changes and things. You're like, oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what I was doing.
Absolutely. Add some more pleasantries. Like, yeah, it's a fun day to be a linguist and think about language data, I gotta say.
Yeah. So, as we're kind of starting to wrap up here, for the women that are kind of in that spot where they're like, I'm not sure how to feel about AI, or they've just been recently laid off because of these kind of tech things, what tips, tricks, tools, anything like that would you give them?
Yeah, the top three things that I'd recommend to anyone, let's say, think about maybe four things I can add. If you're just laid off, worried about layoffs, career anxieties, the things I'd recommend you do. Number one, that emergency fund. Make sure your finances are in a place so that you can sleep better at night, regardless of big changes. Maybe set up a high yield savings account so that money is making you money. I'd recommend. Um, Personal brand. Can people find you online? Do you have a LinkedIn or, if you're mostly on Facebook, like wherever your professional community is it up to date? Can they find you? Your network, keep going to those different events, show up, whether it's an online event, in person, follow up with Phil, follow up with Tammy, like keep that flywheel going for yourself to help future-proof your career. I mentioned the money stuff. And about AI, I think there's one thing to some people might be like, I just want to put my head in the sand. Is this just like NFTs? Can this just pass me by? I get you. I get you. Some people are experiencing that, but the amount of traction it's had with big companies, I really don't see that being the case. So trying ChatGPT, testing things out. There's one thing to like see it fluffy in the news, and there's another thing to actually play with it. So I
Mhm.
strongly recommend to anybody, check out ChatGPT, go hang out with Perplexity, check out what's going on there, get excited about how it could be helpful for you, or laugh at the obvious mistakes it's making, right? Like it's still doing all these things. So trying out different things. I have my own podcast, not as cool as this one, but it's all about people building an AI and like the humanness of like how they built their careers, because anyone can do it. So I've got friends of mine from Google, Microsoft, Adobe, several startups who talk about what they're actually building and how they got their foot in the door for their careers. So my podcast and book are both titled Your AI Roadmap, a lot about careers and being resilient in these times.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I know that we just kind of like touched the surface on a lot of the topics that you are really great at and really dive into. So if you guys are interested in tech or in, how we can better market ourselves and kind of grow personally, I think that she's a really great place to go and to find those things in her book, in her podcast, all of the things. Where do we find you and all of the things that you're doing?
Yes, well, thank you. My book can be found at yourairoadmap.com. You can find more about it. I'm most active on LinkedIn. My name is very, very unusual, Joan Bajorek. Hopefully, we can put that in the show notes. Hard to spell. My podcast, also Your AI Roadmap. I'm beginning to be more active on Insta. My team told me I had to, so you can find me there at Joan in Seattle.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much for this, Joan. This was so good. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's delighted to be here and great to talk with you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mompreneur Podcast. And if you like this episode as much as we did, give us a follow so we can invite you back every Wednesday. And of course, share it on all your socials. Being a confident mompreneur means uncovering your strengths and struggles so you can dive in and learn how your next steps could be your greatest.